Eli's garden.
Welcome to WNHHFM 103.5 Just in Time Conversations. I'm your host, Justin Farmer, inviting you to be in community with us about conversations and ideas that matter. Today, our esteemed guest, esteemed guest, Melinda Tuhus, longtime environmental activist. Thank you so much for being in community.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Justin.
You wear many headphones, as I would like to say.
True.
What organizations, institutions are you part of?
Yeah, sometimes when I write it all down, it's kind of overwhelming, and I think, oh my gosh, I better consolidate. But yeah, I've been doing mainly, I started out generally doing environmental work, and for the last almost 15 years, I've been doing mainly climate work, both nationally and in the state and locally and around New Haven, Hamden. But I also do other things that I think are very related, but the main focus is not necessarily climate. Which one of the things is I've been doing some work in the immigrant space, and there's a very profound connection between climate issues and immigration issues, where people are basically forced to flee their home countries because of droughts or hurricanes, or and they all have as we move along here, a bigger and bigger climate component. So I've been doing some of that, and the other thing I've been doing recently, which also has a climate component, is since October 7th, 2023, I've been doing work around Israel and Palestine. I visited the West Bank and Israel twice,
Wow.
and I know people there, and I know people here who are very concerned about the issue. So I've been doing that, and with the war in Gaza, any war has a tremendous climate impact and an environmental impact. I mean, people are breathing, the dust from all the concrete buildings that are getting blown up, and just the gas and oil that is necessary to get the planes overhead that are dropping the bombs, things like that. So those are the three main things I've been doing in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I just thinking about extraction, right? And the extraction that's done to make infrastructure. And then once you bomb everything, the extraction that's needed to make new infrastructure, right? The greenhouse gases. So it is a toxic cycle. I think my first memory of you is when we were buddies for the Yale Endowment, Yale Environmental Justice Endowment Coalition, where we were the townies, right?
Right.
Connected and buddied up as we did civil disobedience in Yale's investment office, pushing them to divest from fossil fuels.
I don't remember what year that was, but I think my memory goes back further, which is that I met you after Trump was elected the first time back in 2016. And there was a gathering at Dwight Hall, and everybody was completely just, couldn't believe what had happened, and very, very depressed. And I interviewed you then. I didn't know, I was I don't know. I guess I was looking for Yale students because I was at Yale, and then I talked to you, and I guess I found out then that you were a student at Southern, but you gave me a good quote anyway. So,
Oh,
and then I think the endowment thing was I don't remember what year that was, but sometime
probably
after.
2017. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Right. So,
Um,
yeah, we've been around the block a few times.
and the famous Yale Harvard game.
Yeah, that was fun.
Um, Taking the field, taking a rest. And I mean, I can't keep up. I feel like every other civil disobedience opportunity, I'm just like, I got classes or I got work. And you're like, I'm carrying the torch.
Well, it helps to be mostly retired with no parents or children to take care of, and a very flexible schedule. So, yeah, our latest one was just a few weeks ago. 10 of us got arrested inside Governor Lamont's office because he's been just backpedaling furiously on clean energy, and he's embracing gas, methane. And so we sat in and it just sort of proves the point. If there's going to be arrest, you're going to have a way better chance of getting media coverage. So we got a lot of media coverage, and if we hadn't been arrested, we probably wouldn't have gotten any, even though we had a big support team outside. There was a good crowd there, but we're trying to make a point, and so we were really willing to risk arrest. I have to say it was the most pleasant, comfortable arrest action I've ever done, where we were sitting in chairs in the governor's office in the outer room, chatting until the police came and took us away to process us right on site downstairs. We didn't get taken anywhere. We weren't handcuffed, and that is not how it usually goes. So, but it was, I think it was good. A lot of people saw it, and some people would say, well, why did you get arrested there? So we got a chance to tell them.
Well, the work on Killingly, right, on opposing the Killingly power plant, the action that we went down to Greenwich, right, to oppose the nonsense investments in cryptocurrency and all the excess energy that's used, right, in this in that instance. The brokers down in Greenwich, right, had been using a coal power plant to power their computers to mine. And so, I mean, as a person who's been in the fight for some time, how does people often talk about technology as a net benefit, right? And how have you seen that play out in the positive, and how have you seen that play out in the negative, especially in this conversation now of quantum computing and AI and us building all these data centers and all this nonsense for right? Like, how are you viewing this? And when you had started your activism, did it seem this dystopian before?
No, I don't know. I think, there's definitely there's some good things. Like the things that I like from AI are when you get directions when you're driving, and the bird identification thing from the Cornell Ornithology Lab. But I've been around long enough to know there didn't used to be any of this. I predate computers. Personal computers, I should say. Well, I think I predate all of them, actually. But if I had to guess or opine about positive, net positive or net negative, I kind of really think net negative. It's all the data centers they want to build for the AI and all. And even if they were powered by 100% clean energy has its own drawbacks. And also just putting one of these giant buildings that sends out so much heat, and I'm not sure, but I think maybe noise, like
Yeah.
buzzing and things
Yeah.
like that. I wouldn't want to live next to one. So, I think it's just a way for rich people to become even richer, and it's really and then all the downsides of social media, especially for young people, even to the point of people committing suicide and just feeling terrible about themselves. I just, I didn't have any of that. We had slam books when I was in middle school where you could write mean things about somebody, but that was it.
A well placed zen.
Yeah.
Because I often think about, right, you have been a journalist forever, right, and the ability to storytell into, right, either the narratives of others, right, as a journalist centering the narratives of others and connecting it to wider audiences, or, right, and the activism realm of, like, how do we tell, our stories of connection. And technology has been profound to that ability, right? To connect the generational, the regional, the international frameworks and contexts of the work that's going on. So, like, how have you seen reporting and storytelling on the environment and environmentalism change over time? And do you feel in that realm there is some net gain or positivity?
Yeah, when I first started doing radio, we actually literally cut literal tape with a literal, what do you call those things that you shave with? What are those things called?
Razor?
A little blade, yeah, like a razor blade, which I kind of like doing actually. But now, of course, it's all digital, and it's much quicker, and you can get down to the hundredth of a second to get what you want and get rid of what you don't want. I mean, yeah, that when I first saw, the digital display of audio, the little green lines that go up and down, I was like, what is that? And now I'm pretty used to it because I've been doing it for 20 years or more, 25 years. But, that is a positive. And, the fact that people have, almost everyone has a cell phone with a camera on it. I mean, you can use it to take, photos of nature, pretty pictures of nature, or you can use it to document an ice raid. And that's been valuable. Or, back in 2020 with George Floyd, I mean, it might have had a very different turnout. What's the word I'm thinking of? Outcome, if that young woman hadn't filmed that whole thing. So yeah, there are definitely, and I don't go to YouTube a lot, but one thing I've been going to for recently is I have a group called the Connecticut Solidarity Singers, and we go to YouTube to listen, if people want to know what they sound like, what the songs sound like, so we don't just have the lyrics. And that's been really helpful and fun to, see how people record and present different versions of a song. And whenever I go to YouTube, there's all these displays down the side that are so, attractive, like click this, which sometimes I click on. Usually I don't click, but, and that, I mean, the thing, I don't remember the details, they're the numbers, but I did read that actually YouTube itself, people going to YouTube takes an incredible amount of energy because video uses up a lot more energy than audio or print, of course. So that's another reason I try not to go there too often. And I don't look at cat videos, even though I love cats.
For those of y'all who are just joining us, you're listening to Just in Time Conversations, WNHHFM 103.5. We're here with our esteemed guest, Melinda Tuhus. As I've been sitting here thinking about it, Um, so much of our worlds have collided and crossed paths and over the years, and you know, I always joke that I want to play with fish and get paid for it, uh, aka be a marine biologist. But I didn't think like we organized together on the Six Lakes Park Coalition. Um, when we were sitting in the investment office, I that was not even an inkling in my mind of how our cross would path, how we would cross paths in this way. Um, I was just chit chatting with you at the at New Haven Independence holiday party, uh, and sharing about journalism, the journalism classes I'm taking. Um, but what what have you found the most fulfilling in covering stories about the environment? Like what connections has it made for you, on a personal level? How has it changed the way you interact with people in your community? How has it changed how you view community? Right?
Well, some of the most satisfying environmental stories I've done have been when I was traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to New Orleans and the Bayou four times after Katrina. First time was 2 months after. Things were a big mess still. I mean, they were a big mess every time I went down there, but for like within like 18 months afterwards, I went down, I think, 4 times. And so I got to interview people who had experienced this horrible disaster, um, and every time I went to New Orleans, I also went into the bayou, which was with people who I had met who lived there, and took me on tours of going down the river. And we had one instance where we did kayak trips down a certain, I can't remember how far we went, but and there was music and food, and I'm a vegetarian, so I didn't get to eat it all, but I think I did once, just because I said, well, I'm down here, I want to see what it's like. But mostly I mean, I don't eat red meat or seafood, so that was a little bit different experience.
You went to New Orleans? No.
Yeah, I know, and you didn't eat the seafood. I had a vegetarian po' boy.
Okay.
It wasn't too bad. It wasn't great. Anyway, but I met people, I interviewed people, I stayed in touch with people. I have to say that was 20 years ago, so I haven't been very much in touch with the people I met there. But there were people that I met the first time, and I would go back, all the other times and see them and find out how they were doing and what was going on. And then the other place that I've spent a lot of time, more than in Louisiana, was in West Virginia, when I went down the first time to cover mountaintop removal coal mining, which I really think has to change its name, because mountaintop removal sounds so polite. It's like, oh, just take a teaspoon here and a teaspoon there, when it's not like we're blowing the tops off, which is what they do. But anyway, there was a lot of organizing to try to stop what we call MTR. And I went down there at least 4 times, I think more actually, and interviewed people. There were a lot of young people who, actually, some of the same people had moved from New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
Were working in New Orleans after Katrina in 2005 for a number of years, and some of them ended up in 2010 in West Virginia trying to stop this outrageous, horrible practice. Not only does it blow the tops off the mountains, but when they blow the tops off, what they blow off ends up in the streams down below. And these are headwater streams, so I couldn't believe it when I first heard about it, that they do this thing. I said, they can't be doing that. So I wanted to see for myself, and it's pretty terrible. So it's still happening, although because coal economically isn't really viable as nearly as much as it used to be, and it used to power 50% and then 40% of all the energy we use. And now it's down to
like 10.
teens or low teens or something. But when I was there the first time, they were taking coal out by the truckload every 10 minutes on the highway. Literally, a truck with a big dump truck full of coal every 10 minutes. Plus, on the river, the barges, plus the trains, just car after car, just packed with coal. And it's not happening at that level anymore. But that was, it's people that worked on, the coal miners want the jobs, but then why is West Virginia one of the poorest states in the country? It's and the coal miners, the ones who were left, they do get paid well, but they also, it's
Health
not worth
effects.
it. Yeah, like there's an increase in black lung because for younger miners, it used to be more after you'd been there 20 or 30 years, but because the coal is a lot harder to get at now, the way they drill, they're going through rock that's when it shatters and goes into little dust particles, it just lodges in their lungs, and that's worse than the coal dust. So, and that's a terrible disease. It's really, you can't breathe. I mean, it's just terrible. So that's going on, and it was an interesting, for me, it was interesting to talk to. I talked to the president of the United Mine Workers
Hey.
when I was doing stories about that, and and a lot of on environmental issues, a lot of the unions, the extractive unions, they're not on the same side, even though we could be, we should be, but we're not. And so it was interesting talking to him, about trying to defend his workers, which I also support, but I think everybody would be much happier if they could work on solar panels or wind turbines on the tops of the mountains that haven't been blown off already. So, it's good to understand different perspectives.
I mean, I think about Rocky Top, right? The work that Brad McDowell had done, right, in Hamden, where they tried to cleave the top of a mountain off to sell off trap rock, right, and do the bait and switch of like, oh, we're gonna do affordable housing, right? And it's just so interesting to me that there is this disconnect, and I feel maybe it's my opinion, right, but this inflection point of the Green New Deal, right, I feel like it brought in a generational shift, right, not so much in ideology but in terms of rhetoric around, because I feel like there was rhetoric of like, oh, 70s onwards, it's like, oh, these flower power people who just,
Baby boomers.
right, they think they're understand how the world works, and right, they just want to, hang out, but like they're not willing to make the hard decisions versus like the narrative of like Green New Deal. It's like, yeah, we can have bread and roses, right? We can, like, cool, there are wonks in the environmental realm, right? And there can be arguments made about class and race and environmentalism. But I feel like the Green New Deal has, at least for younger folk, changed the narrative of like, yeah, like we can support coal mine. Like, why? Who's telling you coal miners are our enemies? Like, who's our enemies? But like, we are all benefiting and dealing with the degradation of the environment, and the harm that's done to the environment is also the harm that's done to us.
Right. When that was first announced, the Green New Deal, and maybe it wasn't even called the Green New Deal. It definitely wasn't first when they first did an opinion, a poll on that, whatever is included in what's called the Green New Deal. Across the board, there was tremendous support among Republicans and Democrats and stuff. And then when it got tagged as a Democratic proposal, the support among the Republicans just plummeted, even though they had earlier said those sound like good things. It's kind of interesting and sad.
I mean, as a practitioner of faith, right? And a person who, you know, has a feeling of connection and a higher purpose. Um, how do you grapple with the, you know, disagreeing in love with your brother, sister, neighbor, right?
I have a real brother, a biological brother who's a Trumper. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. We have a slim area of agreement. But you know what he said for throughout the Trump's first term, he would say, well, he's not a MAGA person in the sense that he like worships Trump, but he said, yeah, he's a jerk, but I like his policies. And in his second term, he still seems to like most of his policies, although not all of them. Yeah, it's and then the other interesting conversation I had was with a shrimper in Louisiana, who actually there was a whole group of people who came up to D.C. when one of the groups I'm in, the Beyond Extreme Energy, was having an action at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, which basically gives the green light, and they do give the green light on virtually every project. All these interstate, energy projects, mostly, pretty much almost all methane. There's some water projects that they do too. But anyway, a group of people came up because they're at ground zero for all these liquefied natural gas, so-called natural gas.
Yeah.
These methane projects, they're taking gas from the pipelines all over eastern U.S. and sending it down to the Gulf Coast of Texas and Louisiana, and then you can't even imagine how big these facilities are, and they're like what we call fence line communities that are literally right across the road. It's incredible, and they're all lit up at night. All the smokestacks and stuff. There's all these lights blinking, and so they keep building more because because the U.S. is the biggest global producer of both gas and oil. All this gas that they keep developing, they want to send it abroad, and they're sending it down there to be taken from gas to be liquid, which takes a tremendous amount of energy. They put it on barges as liquid, and then when it gets where it's going anywhere around the world, it's converted back to gas, which also takes a tremendous amount of energy. And so I interviewed this one man, and he talked about how, their livelihoods have just been destroyed by all this construction and operation of all this stuff. And he was talking about how we used to shrimp in the bayou, and he said now we have to go into the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. So twice he said the Gulf of America, which told me that he's a Trump supporter. And in the interview, I didn't have a chance to ask him about that, but to say, did you know that it was President Biden, not that I'm a fan of Biden, but at least in this regard, that toward the end of his term, they actually put a moratorium on building those LNG terminals. And it was Trump who just reversed it and just supercharged the whole thing. So if he knew that was where it was coming from, I'm not sure he'd be such a big fan. But, people have certain outlooks, and it's hard to, it's not that easy to change people's point of view if they're wedded to it. And I mean, I have to say that about myself too. Like my Trump brother has not convinced me that I'm wrong yet, and will not, I'm sure, convince me that I'm wrong.
Harry Droz says Trump, Trump, Trump. And we know the Green New Deal is the Trump card.
Couldn't resist that, huh, Justin?
I mean, Bill Gates has left the climate cat out of the bag. I mean, I agree with you, Harry. If we are talking about Cat being the Caterpillar company that Bill Gates owns a majority stock in, right? And through his diversification of funds, right, as he talks about philanthropy and caring about all these things, and then taking that capital to invest in one of the most destructive companies known to man, polluters, backers of genocide and assassination of environmentalists. Like, yeah, like, cool. Like, rich people being hypocrites. That is new.
I didn't know that about Bill Gates.
Yes. And so, yeah, how did you come into this movement, and how do you find joy, right? As the old saying goes, it's easy to chop down trees, right? Much harder to plant them.
Yes, and we know some specific examples of that. Well, I don't know. I grew up in an exurb of Buffalo, and there was a lot of green space around. This was in the 50s when they were just starting all this post-war home building, and before that all happened, we just used to go back in the woods and wander around. And I used to, really enjoy that. I always have loved being out in nature. And so when I became a reporter, there were just things that were happening that were of interest to me. And so, then I wanted to know more. So being a reporter, you get paid to find out stuff, which was great. Yeah. So, and then I read Bill McKibben's book, The End of Nature, which came out in 1987, I think, which is always touted as the first book for the general public about the climate crisis, which I guess it is. Nobody's disputed that. So I read that, and just
you could take the journalists out of their environment, but the environment is still in the journalist.
Right, right.
It's just like, oh, I don't have a source for that.
So I just started learning more about what a problem it is, and when James Hansen testified in 1988 at Congress and said, the climate change is already happening, and we're going above 350 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere, and that's what's that's what the warming is all about. It goes into the so on a timeline, like over a 20-year period, it's 80% stronger than CO2, per molecule, and at a 10-year period, which is less than what we supposedly have left to really make a significant change, it's 100% more powerful than CO2 as a warming gas. So it seems like the low-hanging fruit would be to deal with that and to stop promoting it. And what I just have never understood is all these rich people who are tied into fossil fuels, that they have children, because I don't think, I don't know what Trump believes. I wouldn't begin to guess what he believes, but I think a lot of these people, they know, and they're still, they want to make a buck before, they check out. And it just seems so crazy to me. It just seems sort of not even like a human emotion that you would want to do that and, screw your kids and grandkids even more. And a lot of these people, they're older people and they have grandchildren already, and they don't seem to care. I guess maybe they think they're going to somehow be protected, but I mean, we all breathe the same air.
Until we go to Mars.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah.
To surmise Harry's quotes, Gates and Al Gore have lied to us from the beginning, and we know that climate scientists were manipulating the data.
Wait a minute, who says that?
Harry goes.
Oh, is he channeling Trump?
I mean, yeah, a lot of those early scientists who were like, yeah, climate change is not real, really fall into three buckets, right? Contrarians who want to feel special. People who are like, oh, I definitely was just profiting. Or people who are like, oh, I thought I understood something, and now I actually recant what I said before, because either I am no longer being contrarian, or I know I was falsifying stuff, right? And so, I mean, the majority of the scientific community knows, like, climate change, whether it's man-made or not, it affects us in our communities. And so the question is, how do we respond to that, and what sacrifices and risks are we allowing to be made, and how comfortable can people be, right? And it's just like, all right, if flooding in New Haven County
Right.
reaches 6 feet, great, there's going to be new beachfront property, but like, for some people that will not be fantastic.
Right.
For
right.
others, that could be great to be,
closer to the water.
right. So I guess, out of curiosity, in terms of journalism, did the environment beat come up as something to you that, like, when you first thought about journalism, was environment central to that, or was it like, oh, I'm actually interested in this, and this just kept piquing my interest?
Well, let me just say before I answer that 97% of climate scientists say that climate change is happening and that it is human caused.
Facts. Right.
So, yeah, we should just put that out there. And some scientists who aren't climate scientists might say something different, but they don't know necessarily any more than anybody else, like a layperson knows. Well, for many years, I did as many, when I was, for example, at the New Haven Independent or the New Haven Advocate first, when I first moved here in 87 till 91, I was a general assignment reporter. We didn't have enough staff to really specialize, but whenever I could, I did stories, about environment. And the other main issue that I have been interested in for many years and still cover now is what we used to call criminal justice space, but now we call the criminal legal space, because it's not really criminal justice. You'd have to say criminal injustice, which we could say that. But so those are the two issues, and then they kind of come together in different fights. This is so interesting to me. In Appalachia, where they've blown the tops off the mountains, one of the uses for the now flat land, which they have very little of in West Virginia, it's called the Mountain State, is building prisons, and also in Kentucky, which is across the artificial boundary there in Appalachia. And there was this big fight to stop a prison in Letcher County, Kentucky, to be built on a mountaintop removal site that was cleared off and flattened, and it didn't go forward. It was this big fight. It didn't go forward for a long time. And I'm not sure, but I think now that Trump's back in office, it might be moving forward again. But there were concerns. There's environmental concerns about prisons, in terms of how, there was this story about in New Orleans during Katrina, people were left in the jail, yeah, in the New Orleans parish jail or whatever. I don't know how high the water got, but they were eventually taken out. But that would be pretty terrifying. And there's all kinds of issues with toxic materials and mold, and people don't have fresh air. They get horrible food. All those things they're connected to environment. So I've done a lot of interviews, especially radio interviews, over the last 30 years on those two issues, and sometimes they connect.
And ironically, the prison's major conglomerate, Geo Group, doesn't actually care about, geography or the spatial connection of people.
No, they want to put as many as possible into the smallest space as possible to make more money.
As we come to the near of our time, we were just talking about families and, the holiday times and spending time with our loved ones. Um, what do you what words of wisdom do you want to breathe into the next generation of activists? And then my favorite question to always ask people is, what's a song that we can remember you by?
Oh, you didn't give me any heads up about that. Oh dear. I don't know. I'm trying to. I mean, I just yeah. Actually, there's a hymn that we sing
Hey.
that I love. That is, it's to the tune of Finlandia, and it basically. I'm not going to try to sing it now, but it basically is a song that celebrates where the singer lives and says, but other skies are as blue as mine, and the
Mm.
ocean is the same, and in other words, it's kind of an anti-war song, but it's a song about making common cause with fellow humans and not killing them or
Is it
othering
like
them.
a call and response type?
No, it's
Oh,
it's just a two-verse song. It's very lovely.
oh,
And I can't remember all the words without it in front of me, but that would be, um, yeah, I can't even think of the name that it's called in the hymnal. But that's one. And if anybody wanted to find it, they could probably go to YouTube
hey.
and hit Finlandia, and I bet some of the words would come up to that tune. Um, yeah, well, words of wisdom. I don't know if I have many, although I was in the car coming back from a fabulous training about pipelines in Connecticut, methane pipelines, with a young person, and she asked me about how I got involved and what I'd been doing with my long life, which was really sweet. Um, and I just think people. Well, one thing is I'd like to give people. Well, I can't give people courage. I would like to encourage people of whatever age to just think outside the box. Think outside your comfort zone. Um, the first time I got arrested was a little outside my comfort zone. That was a pretty easy arrest. That was against the war in Iraq in 2003 or something. But you know, if you follow your beliefs and stand up for what you believe in, I think it's a good way to live.
Mm.
That's my words of wisdom.
Well, Melinda, thank you for being in community with us. As we like to say, let us continue to plant the seeds of change so we can grow together.
I like that. I like trees and plants and all of that wonderful stuff that grows. Well, thank you very much for having me, Justin.